The church bells tolled like a death knell, each chime slicing through Ethan Caldwell's heart. He stood in the shadows of St. Mary's, the small-town church where he'd once been an altar boy, watching his own funeral unfold through a cracked window. His family, clad in black, wept crocodile tears over a coffin that held nothing but their lies. Ethan, 24, with tousled brown hair and eyes that still sparked with defiance, wasn't dead. Not physically, at least, but to the Caldwells, his devout, image-obsessed family, he'd been erased the moment he came out as gay 2 years ago. They'd cast him out, declared him a sinner, and when he refused to repent, they staged this grotesque charade, a funeral to bury their shame. The town of Willow Creek, nestled in rural Ohio, had eaten it up, mourning the tragic loss of a son who'd never died. He clutched the hand of Liam Harper, his partner, whose steady presence anchored him against the storm of rage and grief. Liam, 26, with sharp cheekbones and a quiet strength, had been Ethan's rock since they met at a dive bar in Columbus. Their love had blossomed in secret, hidden from Willow Creek's prying eyes, but today, Ethan was done hiding. "They think they can erase me," he whispered, voice trembling with fury. "Let's show them I'm alive." The plan was reckless, born in a late-night haze of whiskey and desperation. Ethan would crash the funeral, confront his family, and expose their hypocrisy to the town. Liam had hesitated, warning of the fallout, but Ethan's resolve was ironclad. "I need to do this," he'd said. "For me. For us." Now, as the organ droned inside, Ethan's pulse raced. This wasn't just about him. It was about every kid in Willow Creek told their truth was a sin. Inside, Pastor Reynolds droned on about God's plan and eternal rest. Ethan's mother, Margaret, dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief, playing the grieving matriarch to perfection. His father, Thomas, sat stone-faced, a pillar of the community who'd rather fake a death than admit his son loved a man. Ethan's younger sister, Clara, 19, was the only one whose tears seemed real, her face pale and haunted. She'd been the last to cut contact, whispering, "I'm sorry," before their parents forbade her from speaking to him. Liam squeezed Ethan's hand. "You sure about this?" His voice was low, laced with worry but unwavering support. Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. "I've never been sure." They slipped through the side door, hearts pounding, and crept into the back of the sanctuary. The air was thick with incense and hypocrisy. As the pastor called for a moment of silence, Ethan stepped into the aisle. Gasps rippled through the pews. Margaret's handkerchief froze mid-dab, and Thomas's face drained of color. Clara's eyes widened, a mix of shock and relief. "I'm not dead," Ethan declared, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "You buried an empty box to save your pride. But I'm here, alive, and I'm not your shame." The congregation erupted in whispers, some horrified, others confused. Pastor Reynolds stammered, clutching his Bible like a shield. Margaret stood, her face a mask of fury. "How dare you defile this sacred space?" she hissed. "You're no son of mine." Ethan's heart twisted, but he held his ground. "You don't get to decide who I am," he said, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "You lied to this town, to yourselves, because you couldn't handle my truth. I'm gay. I love Liam, and I'm done letting you erase me." Liam stepped forward, his hand resting on Ethan's shoulder, a silent vow of solidarity. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Clara broke the silence, her voice small but fierce. "I knew you weren't dead," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I never believed them." She pushed past her parents, running to Ethan and throwing her arms around him. The embrace cracked something open in Ethan's chest. Hope, maybe, or the ghost of family he'd thought lost. Thomas stood, his voice booming. "This is an outrage. You're no longer part of this family." But his words faltered as murmurs of dissent grew louder. Mrs. Larson, the town librarian, stood up. "You told us he died in a car accident," she said, her voice shaking with betrayal. "Why would you lie like that?" Others nodded, their faces shifting from shock to unease. Ethan's eyes locked on his father's. "You can't bury the truth forever," he said. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." He turned to the congregation, his voice rising. "If any of you think love is a sin, that's your burden, not mine. I'm alive, and I'm proud." The room was a powder keg, and Ethan had just lit the fuse. As he and Liam walked out, Clara trailing behind, the weight of their stares followed. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a reckoning. The dusk air hit Ethan like a slap, sharp and cold, as he stepped out of St. Mary's with Liam and Clara at his side. The town square, usually sleepy, buzzed with whispers as people spilled out behind them, their faces a mix of curiosity and judgment. Ethan's legs felt like jelly, but Liam's steady grip kept him grounded. "You did it," Liam murmured, pride in his voice. You showed them. Not enough, Ethan said, his breath visible in the chilly Ohio evening. They'll twist this, make me the villain. He glanced at Clara, who clung to his arm like she was afraid he'd vanish again. Her eyes, red from crying, held a flicker of defiance he hadn't seen before. I'm coming with you, she said, voice firm despite her trembling. I can't stay with them anymore. Ethan's heart ached. Clara was risking everything. Her home, her future in Willow Creek. You don't have to do this, he said softly. They'll make your life hell. But Clara shook her head. They already have. You're my brother. I choose you. The trio headed to Ethan's beat-up Chevy, parked a block away to avoid suspicion. Inside, the car smelled of old leather and Liam's cedar cologne, a small comfort against the chaos. As they drove toward Columbus, where Ethan and Liam shared a cramped apartment, Ethan's mind raced. Crashing the funeral was just the spark. The fire would come when his parents retaliated. Thomas Caldwell was a town councilman, a man who wielded influence like a weapon. Margaret, with her church ladies and social clout, was no less dangerous. They wouldn't let this go quietly. In Columbus, their apartment was a sanctuary of mismatched furniture and warmth. Liam brewed coffee while Clara curled up on the couch, clutching a mug like a lifeline. How did you survive it? She asked Ethan, her voice barely above a whisper. Them cutting you off like that. Ethan sat across from her, his hands wrapped around his own mug. I didn't at first, he admitted. I crashed on friends' couches, drank too much, hated myself for a while. Then I met Liam. He glanced at his partner, who was leaning against the counter, watching them with quiet intensity. He reminded me I was worth something. That love isn't a sin, no matter what they say. Clara's eyes softened. I should have fought for you sooner, she said. I was scared. Ethan reached for her hand. You're here now. That's what matters. The next morning, Ethan woke to a flood of notifications. His stunt had gone viral. Someone at the funeral had live-streamed it, and now X was ablaze with clips of him declaring, I'm not dead. Hashtags like Willow Creek Scandal and Not Dead Yet trended, some praising his courage, others spewing vitriol. A local news outlet had picked it up, framing it as a family feud gone public. Ethan's stomach churned as he read the comments. Hero, one said. Disgrace, said another. Liam scrolled through his phone, his jaw tight. Your parents are spinning it already, he said, showing Ethan a statement from Thomas on the church's website. Our family grieves the loss of our son's soul to sin. We ask for privacy and prayers. Ethan laughed bitterly. They're doubling down. Figures. Clara, still in yesterday's clothes, looked pale but determined. We need to fight back, she said. Tell your story before they bury it again. Ethan hesitated. Going public meant exposing every raw wound, inviting more hate. But staying silent meant letting them win. Okay, he said finally. Let's do it. But we do it right. They contacted a journalist friend, Mia, who worked for an independent outlet in Columbus. She agreed to interview Ethan, promising a fair platform. As they prepared, Liam helped Ethan draft his thoughts, his calm pragmatism balancing Ethan's fire. You're not just telling your story, Liam said. You're speaking for everyone who's been silenced. The interview was set for the next day, but that night, trouble found them. A brick crashed through their apartment window, shattering glass across the floor. Attached was a note. Fags burn in hell. Ethan's blood ran cold, but Liam's voice was steady. They're scared, he said, pulling Ethan close. Scared people lash out. Clara, shaking, clutched her phone, already dialing 911. As sirens wailed in the distance, Ethan realized this was bigger than him, bigger than Willow Creek. It was a war for truth, for love, for the right to exist, and he was ready to fight. The police left after taking statements, but the broken window left a chill in the apartment that no blanket could fix. Ethan sat on the couch, staring at the jagged hole. The note's hateful words burned into his mind. Liam boarded up the window with cardboard, his movements precise but tense. Clara, still shaken, scrolled through X, reading aloud messages of support that trickled in amid the hate. You've got people rooting for you, she said, trying to smile. More than you think. Ethan wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at him. What if this just makes things worse? He asked, voice low. What if they come for you, or Liam? Liam knelt in front of him, his hands steady on Ethan's knees. We knew this wouldn't be easy, he said, but we're in this together. All three of us. The interview with Mia was a lifeline. They met at a small coffee shop in Columbus, its warm lights a stark contrast to the cold dread in Ethan's chest. Mia, a sharp-eyed woman with a knack for cutting through bullshit, listened intently as Ethan recounted his story. The suffocating expectations of Willow Creek, his parents' rejection, the fake funeral. Liam chimed in, describing their life together, the quiet moments of joy that kept them going. Clara spoke last, her voice breaking as she admitted her guilt for staying silent too long. Mia's recorder clicked off, but her eyes stayed on Ethan. "This is going to shake people up," she said. "Are you ready for the fallout?" Ethan swallowed hard. "I don't have a choice," he said. "If I don't speak, they'll keep erasing people like me." The article dropped online the next day, titled "The Boy They Buried Alive." It was raw, unflinching, and spread like wildfire. X lit up again, this time with more voices amplifying Ethan's story. A queer advocacy group in Cleveland reached out, offering support. Strangers shared their own stories of rejection, of fighting to be seen. But the backlash was fierce too. Thomas and Margaret released another statement, calling Ethan troubled and manipulative, claiming he'd abandoned the family. The church rallied behind them, painting Ethan as a prodigal son gone astray. Willow Creek became a battleground. Protesters gathered outside St. Mary's, some holding signs with Bible verses, others with rainbows and messages of love. Ethan watched the news from their apartment, his heart a tangle of pride and fear. "They're talking about us," he said, almost disbelieving. Liam pulled him close. "You started this. You're giving people hope." But hope came at a cost. The harassment escalated, threatening calls, more slurs scrawled on their mailbox. Liam took it in stride, but Ethan saw the strain in his eyes. Clara, meanwhile, was blossoming, finding her voice on X, connecting with others who'd escaped toxic families. "I want to help," she told Ethan one night. "Not just you, but everyone like us." They decided to organize a vigil in Columbus, a show of solidarity for queer youth rejected by their families. Ethan was nervous but resolute. "If we can help one kid feel less alone, it's worth it," he said. Liam and Clara spent days planning, securing a park permit, and spreading the word. The night of the vigil, dozens showed up, queer kids, allies, even a few Willow Creek defectors. Ethan spoke, his voice shaking at first but growing stronger. "We're not invisible," he said. "Our love, our lives, they matter." As candles flickered in the crowd, Ethan felt a weight lift. For the first time, he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for something bigger. The vigil marked a turning point, but the war wasn't over. Ethan's parents doubled down, filing a defamation lawsuit against him and Mia's outlet. The claim was flimsy, accusing Ethan of slandering the family's reputation, but it was a power play meant to intimidate. Thomas's influence in Willow Creek ensured the local paper ran a scathing op-ed, calling Ethan's actions a publicity stunt. The legal notice arrived at their apartment like a gut punch, but Ethan refused to back down. "They want me to shut up," he told Liam. "I won't." Liam, ever the pragmatist, researched pro bono lawyers and found a queer advocacy group willing to take the case. Their lawyer, Sarah, was a firebrand with a sharp smile and sharper wit. "Your parents are banking on you folding," she said at their first meeting. "They're not ready for you to fight back." Clara, now a fierce ally, dug into public records, uncovering Thomas's shady counsel deals. Leverage, she hoped, to expose his hypocrisy. As the lawsuit loomed, Ethan and Liam's relationship faced its own strain. The constant threats, the media scrutiny, the weight of being a symbol. It was too much some days. One night, after a heated argument over whether to move to a safer city, Liam stormed out. Ethan sat alone, staring at the cardboard-covered window, wondering if love could survive this much pressure. When Liam returned hours later, his eyes red, he pulled Ethan into a fierce hug. "I'm not leaving you," he said. "Not ever." The apology wasn't perfect, but it was real. They rebuilt, slowly, leaning on small moments. A shared laugh over burnt toast, a late-night dance in their tiny living room. Clara, meanwhile, was thriving, volunteering with a local LGBTQ center and planning to enroll in college. "You gave me courage," she told Ethan one day. "I want to give it to others." The court date arrived like a storm. The Willow Creek courthouse was packed, a microcosm of the town's divide. Ethan took the stand, his voice steady as he recounted the pain of being disowned, the absurdity of his own funeral. Sarah dismantled Thomas's claims, presenting evidence of the family's lies, including Clara's testimony about their pressure to cut Ethan off. The judge, a stern but fair woman, dismissed the case, citing lack of evidence. The room erupted in cheers from Ethan's supporters, but his parents' faces were stone. Outside, reporters swarmed. Ethan held Liam's hand, unafraid. "This isn't just about me," he told them. "It's about every queer person told they don't belong. We do, and we're not going away." The victory was bittersweet. Willow Creek remained split, and Ethan's parents refused to speak to him or Clara. But the tide was shifting. More locals reached out, apologizing for believing the lies. A few even joined the next vigil, their presence a quiet rebellion against the town's old ways. Months later, Ethan stood on the same lakeside dock where he and Liam had shared countless quiet moments. The sunset painted the water gold, just as it had the day they decided to fight. Liam stood beside him, their hands intertwined, their love a quiet triumph. Clara was there too, now a college freshman, her smile brighter than Ethan had ever seen. "We made it," she said, her voice full of wonder. The lawsuit's dismissal had been a spark, igniting change in Willow Creek. The church lost members, and Pastor Reynolds issued a reluctant apology for his role in the funeral. Thomas resigned from the town council, his influence crumbling under scrutiny. Margaret retreated into silence, her social empire fractured. Ethan didn't gloat. He pitied them, in a way, for clinging to a world that was fading. The vigils continued, growing larger each time. Ethan and Liam became voices for queer youth, speaking at rallies, sharing their story. They weren't heroes, just two men who refused to be erased. Clara, too, found her purpose, mentoring kids at the LGBTQ Center, helping them navigate the pain of rejection. One night, as they sat by the lake, Liam pulled out a small box. Inside was a simple silver ring. "I don't care what the world throws at us," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I want forever with you." Ethan's eyes stung as he slipped the ring on, whispering, "Forever." The moment wasn't perfect. Hate still lingered, and the scars of Willow Creek would never fully fade. But as Ethan looked at Liam, at Clara laughing by the water, he knew they'd won something bigger than a lawsuit. They'd won the right to exist, to love, to be seen. And for every kid out there, watching, waiting for their own moment to rise, Ethan's story was a beacon. You are not your shame. You are alive, and you are enough.